got to redo Substack and all that kind of stuff. But I can do that while we're chit-chatting, as long
All
as it's coming
right.
up. I think we'll be rolling in a couple of seconds, and it's all good. Let's see if this is flying. I think it is. We'll check in with it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, what's happening, chat room? Good to see you. We're back. We're good. All right, excellent. All it took was a catastrophic restart. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my favorite part of the morning. Who can't get up in the morning with their hot piping glass of catastrophic reset? It's I know I can't start my day without it. And where were we? I think is the key. Primarily that yes, Trump is betraying all the things we've talked about. The redistricting will not solve the problem they think it will solve. And then on top of that, I feel like the question always lands on us. What do we have to do to
Right.
guarantee that we regain the seats, the control, the representation? I think it's less about control of the Senate or the House or any of those things, but those bodies represent exactly what they're the will of the people.
Right. Exactly. That's what I was talking about down in Texas. They voted for something specific, and at least the Texas legislature, the Democrats are doing what they need to do.
Yeah, they were like, probably not. And again, that I think that was an excellent point you made as well. That these are folks that had to. That they are representing their people by not allowing a quorum to be made that would bully them into losing representation. That is the
100%. And all
job.
this, yes, and the threat of we're going to arrest them, we're going to take away their seats. There's still the Constitution. They're threatening a bunch of stuff that's unconstitutional. Meanwhile, you want to know who actually committed a felon? That would be Ken Paxton. So it's really hard
Right.
for me to hear someone like that who is under felony indictment say, oh, how these Democrats are breaking the law because they actually left the state so they weren't going to pass some bullshit maps. It's
Right.
craziness. It's crazy making.
Yeah, and but the answer too is on our side. Like the big pushback I get, and I had Joe Walsh on the other day, and he's just become a Democrat, as has the Lieutenant Governor of Georgia. That is a trend that's actually happening. Is you can't just run against somebody; you got to run for something. Okay, but I would argue that's all Democrats have been doing for a long time. As a matter of fact,
Yeah.
we have not been villainizing the other side adequately enough. You need only look at the fact that Hillary Clinton had the Steele dossier and they didn't release it. Vox did because they got it through a third source. Like she could have made
Absolutely.
it, an attack on him as a human being, an attack on his followers as human beings. Even the basket of deplorables thing was an attempt, and I think Biden did try to do it as very well. It was an attempt to separate maggotdom from the rank and file Republicans, right?
Yeah, they were hoping that all of them hadn't been lost. I think that was also part of it. Like, all right, if you're really the Republican Party and you are the party of Reagan, and I don't like that as an example because there was so many things wrong still, but if you're not one of these people, separate yourself. Show us you're not one of these people. And they didn't. They
Mm-hmm.
jumped into the basket with them. That's what they did.
Right, right. Well, and was that out of like fear, or was that out of like, because I think in some cases you can tell there are a bunch of people who are like, holy shit, what this water is boiling around me, but I guess we've all just
Right.
agreed to become frog soup, right? Is that what
Right.
we're doing now?
I mean, I think for some of them, that's what they're doing. I think there's so much fear. Listen, Hal, I think so many people have done such bad shit in this country, and there's so much blackmail on so many of these people that I think even if they wanted to do the right thing at this point, they can't. That's really what I believe with some of these higher up
Okay, all
officials.
right. So Dana Goldberg, the lesbian Stephanie Miller adjacent Alex Jones. That's you're carving off that slice for yourself, and you are
Every once in a while, I absolutely believe. Yeah, listen, yeah, conspiracy theory, but I do think with the RNC hack in 2016, I think there was
yeah.
a lot of things that were never released. They found some blackmail on some people, and they have those people by the balls. No pun intended. Some of them
Mm-hmm.
actually by the balls, but
Mm-hmm.
not every one of them is compromised. I think some people are actually cowards. And they're worried about losing their seats, or they're worried about they're going to get primaried, or for somehow they're going to lose their money. Listen, a lot of these people do have families they're supporting, and maybe they started those with blood money, maybe they didn't. But now you actually have to toe this line with this guy. That what I don't understand though, Hal, is it's all smoke and mirrors. Every
Right.
time he endorses someone lately, they lose. So what
Hmm.
are these people doing at this point? Now I just feel like you actually believe this, or you're a bad person.
Well, here's okay. I happen to think it's a numbers game for a lot of them too. There is a there's a line where they know there are more Democratic voters out there than there are Republican voters. Always have
Right.
been. That's why they rely on the Senate and the Electoral College most of the time. And the only way that they came close, and we can discuss whether or not there was hanky panky around the machines via Elon Musk later, but the only way that they, were able to get into the zone of, even near the popular voters, because a significant number of Democratic voters stood down during
Yeah.
that election cycle, whether it was because it was a woman of color, whether because they were dopey and disillusioned enough to think that Trump would be better for Gaza, even though he called it Trump Plaza Gaza, called them a cancer,
Ugh.
called it, like, it's fucking ridiculous. But they
Yeah, you
fell for it
can't make
by
more
and large.
anti-Semitism in this world than speak about like that about other humans. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. So normally, they know that. I think the Rasmussen guy that I was talking about, he says Republicans have to be +4 in a lot of areas just to break even as far as their approval rating.
Wow.
Yeah, and if they're at parity or below, which most of them are, they lose, and they know this, and red districts start to drift purple, and it takes a lot of work. Hence the stuff that's going on in Texas. They know what they're doing isn't popular. They're just trying to bum rush this stuff through so that they can. I think the Trump family just wants to get rich and establish power over a section of the electorate now.
Absolutely.
And it has nothing to do with electoral politics after this. They could give a fuck if J.D. Vance wins or loses or whatever. They'll find a way to. Yeah, they're going to build another Fox News in their mind that makes more money when there's a Democrat in office anyways, and Democrats manage the economy better. So you can make more money bitching about taxes than you would pay in taxes. That's the gig.
I agree with you, and I don't know how what seems to be the worst family on the history of this planet somehow is getting away with everything. Like, I want to believe in karma. I want to believe the universe is working in the best direction for the greater good. But man, it's really hard to believe that when this shit keeps going on, and they keep getting away with everything.
Well, doesn't there have to be a test for it to be? I mean, honestly, this is my argument for why God allows suffering, is that this is all a playground to some degree but a deep and important emotional playground where you learn the skills to be an impact, I don't know, a compassionate member of the universe, and you have to, like the Buddhists believe, go through it several times to get to the point where you can get to forgiveness. And that means being on both sides of the equation while you live here. And this playground matters. And the reason it can happen, why the universe can let this happen or God can let this happen, is because it's ultimately it's like a movie. It's ketchup instead of blood, but it hurts while you're here.
Labeled as Alex Jones, and you're basically like Gandhi right now.
Well, no,
saying.
because I would have let my wife have quinine, and so if she was suffering from an infection, if I took a medicine myself to save my own life, I would also allow my wife to take it. That's there are only a few things different between that and I eat beef. There's
equal opportunity.
Yeah, these are the two big differences between me and Gandhi.
Oh my God. I think one of the things too, Hal, and I have to say this, and I hope I don't piss off any liberals or progressives that are listening, but also some of the reason we lost middle America is because of the way we talk about politics and the words we use, and they don't understand them. And I'm just giving some examples. So don't shoot the messenger, but using unalive instead of killed, using birthing person, which I happen to agree with, because it involves the trans men instead of women. All of that, Democrats and progressives have such a big umbrella. We want everyone to fit under it. But when we do that, and we're so afraid of offending anybody, then we lose a demographic in the middle of America that's like, I don't understand what the fuck you just said. And you're definitely talking to me because I don't understand you. And I listened to Andy Brashear. He was at a speaker of one of the events that I did, and he is amazing, but he manages to keep winning in a red state, and he's an incredible Democrat, and he doesn't throw the trans community under the bus, and he never threw the LGBTQ community under the bus, but he learned how to speak to the people in his state in a way that didn't make them feel dumb. And that's what we have to do again.
Well, and what I don't think it's being. I'm from Kentucky, and I think it's
Okay.
about not speaking with a level of dismissal and cruelty for people who haven't caught up to
Yes.
your way of thinking yet. And
100%, Hal.
you
Well
know, and
said.
if you're going to say diversity is our strength, that includes people who don't understand what you're selling right now, who aren't on the
Yes.
team 100%, who aren't convinced by your argument that you've already talked yourself into, and you may be right 100%, but now you've got to figure out a way to articulate it to others, especially if it is a new vanguard experience for these people. You can't just go,
Absolutely.
fuck it, I don't have to educate you, fuck you, and then walk away from it and then expect them to vote with you on it, because what it sounds like to them is more blind fascism. It's just they'd rather the blind fascism they think they have one rein on as opposed to none.
Yep. Absolutely. I agree with you.
And it's when, you know, this is like we have this argument about, you know, like social security not being socialism and all that kind of stuff on my show all the time, because it ain't. But some people will defend socialism, the word, more than the programs themselves or the ideology of what you're trying to do. And if you can
Right.
focus on the why of what you're doing instead of just the what and what you call it, which is, you know,
Absolutely. Tell these people how this is going to benefit and make their lives better. Just don't
right.
go in and try to sell something and be like, here's a new tool, not going to tell you how to use it. Good luck.
Right. Well, and like I, you know, in the trans situation, I feel like we spend so much time trying to explain from a compassionate standpoint trans people's lives to people that don't believe it, can't picture it, think it's odd, have no experience in church or their family or whoever has told them that it's wrong or dangerous or gross or whatever. And there's a bridge of reasons because we haven't been willing to have that conversation. Like I feel like because of how liberals have not been comfortable or worried about being denigrated or chased by slacktivists and people online, people, you know, the Twitterati, we have not been able to have an open conversation about the difference between an autogynephile and a trans person. And
I agree with you.
trans people should not have to carry the burden of autogynephiles, because what that allows the Trumps of the world to do is come in and make that conflation because we won't separate it. Anybody who says they are, they are. And that includes, in this case, BTK. And I'm not willing to saddle the entire trans community with BTK, the bind, torture, killer guy who would dress in women's clothing, wear a woman's mask to
They're totally different.
be his victim.
They're totally
Right.
different.
But our argument was you self-identify, that's all you need to do, and that's all they needed. That's all they needed to hear from us to go, oh, well, and you would include, like misogynistic transvestites from fucking, I don't know, detective dramas they saw in the 70s, right? Like Body Heat or some shit. You know, that's where their brain goes. And we have to be willing to go, okay, that's fiction. This is the reality. We need to make rules that protect trans people from people who would take advantage of those rules. So if somebody wants to soul man their way into a woman's college, and because they can go, we didn't set any rules because we don't want to offend anybody. We didn't set a standard,
But,
right?
but that's the thing. There are so many standards that have already been set up that people have forgotten. Let's take for example. First of all, I have a hard time, and I don't want to end this conversation. But one of the things we have to do is invite more trans people to the table to have these conversations. It's so many cis people talking about this on radio and television with other.
Well, by
cis
number,
people.
that's just the reality. I mean, we literally are
100%.
discussing it, and I would argue, I agree that they should have a place at the table, but I also think that, Blair White has a place at the table. Blair White is trans. She
Right.
has been one of the singular biggest driving forces that got Trump elected in the last 2 years. If you look at the
Oh,
impact,
I agree. I don't think that there's not transphobic people, like internalized transphobic. You look at Caitlyn Jenner. You think she did anything good for the trans community? I agree with you with everything you're saying and educating. I think there's a thing that we have to talk to people about, don't understand, or that are confused, that they think that we are like everything all the time, no stipulations, no science. Everyone should be allowed to do everything. And we don't. That's what I
right?
want to say. But if you're on the side where you think there should be a complete ban with no exception, then
Yeah.
you and I don't have anything to talk about. But there's a large part of the world that you could go to them and say, wait, so you're telling me a trans girl who's still in middle school isn't allowed to play sports with her friends in a league? And they would go, well, no, she's only 12. Of course she's allowed to play. Great. Then you're not for a full ban. That means you're on our side. Help us figure out a solution. That's the conversation that needs to be had, because if you're all or you're nothing, and not many of us are, then there's no middle ground. But if you can talk to someone and say, okay, so you do think the NCAA should be able to make rules around testosterone and who can play when, that the NCAA with scientists, not politicians, and then they go, well, yeah, if there was some rules set up and people adhere to them, there's always been rules set up. Then you get to go, great. So you're not with them. You're with us. Help us find a solution.
Right, I agree.
A lot of people in the
There were
middle.
people. I agree, but there are also people on our side that were attempting to strip away all rules. That, I mean, I would argue that, in the conversation around the entire non-binary movement, there's a spectrum in the conversation around non-binary where the language online that you see by and large dismisses trans identity and being gay outright. Some of the language you heard from the non-binary activist community that was affecting Democrats and how, like, sort of the paralysis around this had to do with the fact that genital preference in, being homosexual is as artificial as being heterosexual. And so the rights and privileges and existence of that gay people, a lesbian that doesn't date a trans man who still has a penis is transphobic and also insistent insistent genital preference.
Yeah,
Like that whole conversation
that sort of
ate
stuff gets
everything.
lost too.
Right.
100%. I agree with you, and that actually takes away the trans experience from that man. To
Right.
say a lesbian who doesn't want to date a trans man is somehow transphobic isn't fair, because then you're saying that trans man isn't actually a man. That would be a queer relationship. There has to be room for that. I don't like the purity.
There
test
is
in the
already. I just
LGBT community. I don't
right.
like it.
And I think this goes to the jargon point that you're making. And we can dive into almost any of these things and it will get as murky and gray and polarizing as possible because of the very nature of the complexity of human life. And governing in a democracy and governing in even an authoritarian sense, you're going to have to deal with the gooier parts of humanity, right?
Right. Yeah, 100%.
It's just real. But when I blame branding over everything. The branding movement that started in the early 2000s that became people's way on social media and other places to define themselves as the categories they could commodify in their lives. And then the desire to commodify those things. And this moved into, and having been on Queer as Folk and saw, people like arguing that straight people shouldn't play gay. And I was like, never in my life would I ever say a gay person couldn't play a straight character. What are you talking about? Like, you're
Right.
just...
Take Patrick Harris and How I Met Your Mother.
Right. I mean, the dude's brilliant. Right. So get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, it's love is love, and that's the sort of the point of conveying it, is you're conveying emotion, not the secondary sex characteristics even of the person or if the audience buys it, that's what matters, no matter who it is, no matter what.
Yes, and just a little devil's advocate, though, as long as the audience buys it, but there also has to be equal opportunity. You have to at least bring in people to audition for these things to see if they fit the role the best way. You can't just open it up and disclose, not include trans people for a trans role. Allow them to have that.
I would go I would go further than that. I think trans people should be able to play what are effectively straight or heterosexual characters or play men or women that they are without any
100%.
Reference to the fact that they're trans, because that's the point.
Absolutely.
Like at a certain point,
like Brian Michael Smith, you would never know Brian Michael
Right.
Smith is a trans man if he didn't tell you. You just
Right.
wouldn't. Half of the straight women listening to this would absolutely buy him a drink in a bar, not even realizing it's a trans man.
Sure. My point is they should be able to play the part that they can convince the audience of in every aspect, not just
100%.
that. And as a matter of fact, I think the hyper focus on only trans actors should play trans characters or something like that dismisses trans characters entirely as having any more depth than a singular experience. That this is so
I
unique
agree with that.
and
I think
so
that's well
separate,
said, Hal.
and that these
Yeah.
people are so different, only one of them can play them. And that
Right.
is an absurdity on so many fronts, and it tears at the heart of what acting is for, which is understanding. The whole goal for me as an actor is both for me to understand this person I'm playing and to make the audience understand their motivation, why they do what they do, even if
Yes.
they're doing something that is out of character for them or in line with who they are. That's the goal. And that's what matters to the audience. Do you come away understanding this person more,
I don't
right?
disagree with you as
And
long as people have
and the idea that
even
you would
playing field.
sequester people further and further, like a trans person can only play a trans character, and there was like arguments about a trans actor, whether they were playing they could play an actor playing a trans person in something, because how would you fucking know, right? Like the weirdest,
Right.
okay, so there's a movie where a straight person is playing. I like Tootsie's a silly example, but playing a trans person or a crossdresser or somebody in this story. And the idea that a trans person should play that because of the nature of the cross-dressing that involves in the character. And the
Well, that
reality
goes
is,
back into those aren't even the same things anyway. But yeah,
I know, right? That argument was happening. That
right.
in Hollywood, like that they were discussing these things, and ultimately the point is, does the audience come away with the creator's vision or not? That's what matters. And the idea that they have to audition a certain number of trans people or whatever when there are so few to start with. I mean, it's not. LA's, I suppose, different or whatever, but there's the volume issue that's always going to be the thing. And so pushing somebody to the front of the line on a role, when I think they should just be allowed to play, for lack of a better word, regular characters. I think the goal about trans identity in movies and stuff should be that they should be able to play everybody.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think we agree on most of this. But
Yeah.
you're talking about the numbers thing where trans people should be able to play cis, straight, gay, lesbian, whatever they
Yeah.
decide. And on the flip side, for someone to play a trans character, we're still going back to those numbers and the authenticity of being able to tell the story of a lived experience. So those roles, I don't have a problem. I just want trans people in the damn room. That's what I
do
want.
too.
I want them
Here's
to have
the lived
I want the
experience.
opportunity.
Actors don't show their lived experience. They're playing fictional characters no matter what. And anybody who thinks that they're playing their lived experience
I agree with that.
is an ego play. I think that's why trans people should be able to play, like I said, quote unquote normal characters or the average person, because they can convey what their job is. And an actor's job is not to convey some sort of like historical context in this circumstance. It's to show the life of that person, the love,
Absolutely.
the hate, the anger, and the idea that somehow their feelings are unique only to that, which is what happens.
No, I agree with you. Yeah.
Is bigoted. I believe that is a form of bigotry. It is a sequestration of trans people and a limiting of their capability. Because if you can show your lived experiences, have you ever had your heart broken? That's
right.
lived
You and
experience.
I are absolutely. I know it sounds like we're arguing. I might anyway.
What
'cause I
club you
still
were
can't
at,
see you.
and whether
But
there
yeah,
were
we're
straight
not-
people or
you
gay
and I
people in that
agree on
club,
this.
right? When you had your heart broken, doesn't matter, especially if you are an actor. And it undersells the value of these actors to say that their lived experience informs the mechanics of what they're doing.
Right.
More than the emotional state, which is entirely the job of the actor. That's my take on it as an actor and as somebody who's, played a spectrum of people. I played a Catholic priest
Literally.
at one point too.
Yeah.
So, I obviously didn't have that, lived experience, but I think I did a fairly decent job playing guitar as a rock and roll priest. But the point I'm trying to make is we have to value people for their intrinsic humanity. And what we move to, and maybe we're moving out of it. Maybe that's where we are.
Yeah, I was like, how do we even get on this? Let's move.
Well,
back
the
to
jargon part of it, and you know what I mean, is us selling jargon over reality, over humanity. That we have let that outpace it. And the Republicans are almost in that trap themselves. So we only got a couple minutes left, and I'm sorry about the blurb in the middle. I appreciate you. We'll have a smoother one next time when you're on.
Speaking of acting, I haven't been able to see you for the last 30 minutes. So if you want to talk about good acting, there you go.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
You and I are having a conversation where it's just us.
Oh, yeah, sorry. You're just hearing me. There you go. How's that?
It just came on.
Yeah, I just turned it back on.
You could
Sorry.
control that the entire time, Hal?
I did. I just thought it was back up because I had to restart the software, so it didn't restart that part of it. Sorry. Hi. So, yeah, it was like old-fashioned radio.
I think that would have turned less into what sounded like an argument to the listeners if I could have seen your face, because I couldn't see you for the last 20 minutes. So I was
yes.
Yeah,
that's right. Well, the goal, I think, is I believe artists bring their humanity, not their history.
I agree with everything, 100%.
And honestly, Republicans don't want that to be true. They don't. And if if you're all focused on bringing your history and not your humanity, you don't have a future. You're just retreading.
They've lost their humanity. That's the thing. These people have lost their humanity. They've lost their empathy chip. They have lost all of that. And if it's greed, it's greed. If it's fear, it's fear. But it's so apparent that you no longer give a shit about anyone that isn't you. I'm not even talking about your immediate family, because I bet they have daughters. I bet they have sons. I bet they have trans kids and bi kids and gay kids. They don't give a shit, it seems like, except their wallets. How can they make more money, and how can they maintain their power? That's what it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, I think maggotdom seemed to react so much to the border that it was a bigotry encroachment issue, that they were at the hinge point of a bunch of social movements all at once, and they didn't have a grip on any of them. So,
yes,
from gay marriage to trans rights, that continuing march that's going on, the transition from slavery to civil rights to economic stability and growth and generational wealth, and that was going on in the black community and the movement towards that. And then they're sort of feeling, I'm sure there was a little bit of like, China's making all the devices and I don't know how anything works. That's probably haunting half of their brain as well. And then right. And then they don't know how to fix anything, but there's like 9 guys at Home Depot who are here, hanging out looking for a side job that you could pay $20 to, and they can fix anything in your house, and they feel emasculated by that. That probably is, it's not one thing. It's not just the fear. It's not just the greed. It's all of them at once, and that's why the freak out was as extreme as it was. And then we went and gave them a black president. How dare we, right?
How dare we, man?
Right, and they just went, bah! Like the meter just went, it's like they were driving along the highway, and their car was making some weird noises, and the check engine light was on or whatever, but then all of a sudden, like, the entire dashboard lit up. And they're stuck in that space right now. Now, here's my final question for you, and I appreciate you... I know you're. I don't know what your schedule is for your podcast.
It's every day. Allison and I put out 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, the daily games with myself and Allison Gill. Yeah.
Lovely. What time does it drop every day, or does it change?
If you're a patron, you get it the night before without commercials. Otherwise, it's first thing in the morning. And you can follow me on the socials. Every social is DG Comedy. Love to have you on my Instagram. You get to see funny videos and photos. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Yeah. So the question is, does the Epstein thing drive maggotdom a statistically significant number of them away over the next couple of years, that it costs the Republicans seats and strength?
That is my hope. This doesn't seem to be going away. That's all I can say. It's my hope. Listen, Hal, I thought there were so many things that were going to drive Republicans away, and I've been wrong every time. So it's hard for me to find hope that this is going to be the thing that breaks the dam for them. But if we continue to stay on the gas pedal with this and make sure the voices are being heard, that the victims' voices are being heard over the perpetrators, that's what we need to do. Let's keep them in the news cycle. Don't let this fall to the wayside.
Agreed. Well said. And I think so. And I think the difference in this is that most of the things that we've been looking at, we're outraged by first, and then we're trying to convince them to be outraged by it. This was something they were outraged by first, and now they're being told by Trump to stuff it.
Yeah. And we have to remember, it's because they were told to be outraged by it.
Yes.
Because when you've got people in Utah changing the age of consent to protect a family member, they don't give a shit about it. All of these people were told to be outraged about the Epstein files. It was going to be Democrats. It was going to be Clinton. It was going to be this person, this person. And all of a sudden they're like, hey, why don't we get to see this? And they're like, well, because we got 20 FBI agents that need to redact the president's name before we release them. I mean,
Right. Because he's in all the pictures and the videos. And in the one case where you might get somebody like Bill Gates that you want, the only other witness is Donald Trump himself. He'd have to testify against Bill Gates, and we can't have that happening. You're wonderful.
Right.
Thank you so much for coming on, and I'd love to have you back on again in the near future. It'd be great.
You're the best, and it's good to see you.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye,
All right.
bye,
I'll
my
let you.
friend. Your hair is luscious. Let it down.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right. Cheers. Bye, Dana. All right, and then I've got Rob Glenn waiting in the background. Let me get him ready.
Can you hear me, Hal?
Yes, you're a little boomy, but I hear you. Yes.
I can change my mic. I use my earbuds as the mic,
I see.
but it's echoey in here. Sorry.
That's all right. A little bit. Yeah. Are you coming straight from Guantanamo, or is this a basement?
I'm at the shop today.
Oh, nice. Ladies and gentlemen, Rob Glenn joining us live from the
Hello.
shop, the place that I desperately want to go. And yeah. Okay, so where do we even start? Hi, missed you.
Hi.
And yes, and chat room, give a like, share the show. This is the Friday I part of it, and I like yesterday. I don't know if you saw, they dropped GPT-5.
I thought that would be a subject of today's conversation.
Yes. So GPT-5 was originally, when they were talking about it, by the time when they were at 3, they were like, by the time we get to 5, that's basically AGI. That's like artificial general intelligence, or ASI, artificial superior intelligence. Like, not so much, but it is a huge advance. And that's where, and this will be the benchmark for, I always talk about benchmarks, and it's the most boring part of this thing. Whenever they show these things, they show the benchmarks for them. Like, dudes, we don't fucking care. Does the picture I asked for look like a picture? Does it understand what I'm talking about? There should be a regular human being benchmark. Like, we have a user base of people who are very frustrated with their computer. And it beats the Hal's mom benchmark, right?
It's funny that you went there to begin with, because I thought the same thing yesterday. There's no way to measure the difference between 4 and 5,
right?
Like, for most people, and that's maybe AI as a product's problem, is that they started from the standpoint of saying it's human. And so what makes it a better human? Like, with a computer, like, I was thinking about other products like cars. Cars is easy, like, it goes faster, it stops faster.
Yes, or it
goes
breaks
0
quicker.
to 60, and yes, computers were the perfect, like, some people call it planned obsolescence. Like, computers were, it's 100 megahertz, it's 200 megahertz, it's 1,000 megahertz.
You know
what I'm saying?
Like, you're so just nerding me out right now, because I went to modems. I was like, this is 14.4. Like, shit. Like, when you're talking about like upgrading a modem in the 90s, and you're like, you don't understand. Like, this is like double. Like, the
right.
Weird...
So AI is like currently running up against a little problem, I think. Like, maybe we'll call it like behavioral psychology problem, where, like, politically, everybody that's smart is like, get rid of them right now. Like, it's like politically advantageous to call experts stupid. So the smarter that the quote unquote smarter ChatGPT gets, like, the worst person it is politically. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not who half the country wants to be telling them what to do or something.
Right.
I don't know. Like, also, like, it's very hard to measure intelligence. And so, let's say with Google, like if you type something into Google
Yes.
and it gives you a response, you'll feel the time it took to give you that response. And then after you get that, you only understand the quality of the response by looking through the list, clicking, reading, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
But AI is different than that in the way that it's being presented, in the sense that you type in a question and then it like thinks and then it gives you a response, but it only gives you one response. So there's nothing to compare it to,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can only compare it to your base knowledge. And there's no way to understand speed
Yeah.
or clarity or correctness because there's nothing to compare it to.
Right. And when you're comparing it to humans, it's like the, the calculator lit up the LEDs faster than a person could crank a handle to make the lights turn on the numbers. And like, the fuck are you talking about? Like, nobody cares. That's not practical
Right.
use of word. Of course it is. That's like saying, a forest fire burns down a forest faster than humans could chop it down.
Right.
And
Well, but a calculator could have like more decimals, a bigger screen, more buttons, more
yes,
functions. Like
yeah,
there's something to measure it by that you can like look at it and say, yeah, this calculator is better than that calculator because it's bigger or it's it has more buttons, right?
I was
Like
trying to
that
find
thing doesn't exist
right.
for GPT.
The I do think there is an area, and this is kind of crucial. I'm trying to find this article. I've been looking for it all morning or whatever. But one of the things that is you can see certain phrases start popping up where they're like the AI bubble started floating a couple of weeks ago, and then right around this thing started leaking out because they were giving access to GPT-5 to a bunch of people, and those people were starting to write their reviews already. They couldn't post them yet because of their NDAs, but they were telling people around them like, "Holy shit!" And in doing that, they that conversation about a bubble died down pretty fucking quick. So there,
When you say that, holy shit, you're saying that the sort of underlying behind the scenes feedback was really good, or holy
yes,
shit, it's not as good as we think it should
no,
be.
it's nuts. Like
Okay,
it's so
gotcha.
much better when if you go by the benchmarks. It's like if you went to buy a car and you went this one 0 to 60 is all that mattered to you. And that's what you
Right.
heard all your life. Like this one goes from 0 to 60 in 8 seconds, or then 6 seconds, and then 4 seconds, and then 2 seconds. And you showed up, and it went, okay. This one goes from 0 to 60 in it used to be 2.6 seconds. Now it's 2 seconds, right? And you're like 2.6 to 2. Who gives a shit? And then you get in the car, and it's all panels, and it's got airbags, and it's safer, and it's quiet, and you can't hear street noise, and the seats are better, and like it's that kind of a situation where if you just go by the benchmarks, it won't seem like much, but that little difference, it goes towards like the seismograph. Like when you look at an earthquake, just one number higher is exponentially. A 6 versus a 7 is an enormous leap. It doesn't sound like it, but it's huge. The same thing is kind of true in this. So there was a story, and I'm trying to find the actual one behind it, but the phrase that kept coming up was that we are underestimating AI. And you and I, we vacillate between tap the brakes and me going, it's gonna happen faster than people are saying. I've been doing this the whole time. Like, look, is it there yet? In a lot of ways, no. And a bunch of people in the kitchen gorging themselves on cookie dough. And I'm saying, wait for the cookies. The cookies are gonna be amazing. And they're like, no, you don't understand. This is good enough already, right? Like, yes, is that a thing? Sure. But what it's materially doing, and it's ramping how it's ramping shit up, is a crazy arc. It's hard to explain, but so maybe a year ago.
Well, it's hard to see for an average person. I think that's
Right,
the key.
right. So they talk about this stuff like ASI, artificial super intelligence, and the AGI, that it'll be smarter than anybody, and blah blah blah. then there was this report where all these, I guess, like super predictors, they call them, like people sat around and went, okay, let's game this out. Where we are right now, where will we be in, by 2036? And they were setting all these things that would happen by 2036 in terms of like coding and image generation and all that kind of stuff by 2036. And all of it happened in less than a year. They were off by a decade.
Yep. Okay.
All of these people, all the biggest scientists that were dealing with AI last year in 2024, who were sitting down and, wow, okay, this is what we have in front of us. This is what this shit will do. And where are we going to be in 10 years? We're already there. It's a year later.
Yeah, I think that it feels to me as if AI is the reason it feels like it's going so fast is because it was one single leap.
Yes.
And now we've like slowed way down. In reality, we've slowed way down, but uh, it because we never really understood what it was doing before. Totally, it happened so fast.
Right.
Like you just can't see the beginning and the end because the time frame is too short. And they're literally like, it's a matter of like as it scales, it's really hard to measure the productivity of it, I guess, is the right way to say it.
Well,
I heard this really interesting person talk about if it was a product, like if this thing is supposed to be like you can put a PhD or a physicist next to you and ask them questions, right? So what if you compared using ChatGPT to that? Like I have this problem, I want to ask the world's greatest expert in that problem. If you would have to pay that person a significant amount of money to sit next to you for a day.
Yes.
And so the value of that is a very large amount of money. And here's, I think, the fundamental problem of AI is that ChatGPT, OpenAI, everybody, they're like, either it's free, you can have that expert for free, or it's $20 a month. And since they started low, they can't go up.
Right.
If that makes any sense. So they've all like, it's almost as if the commercialization of it, the way it was rolled out commercially, actually devalues it in most people's eyes. When in fact, it is that thing that you would pay if you could pay, but you can't. You would pay, I don't know, $25,000 for a day of time with the world's foremost expert in, whatever it is you want to do that day. I don't know.
Right.
Like how much do the consultants cost in anything, right?
Yes, exactly. Those are the first white collar jobs that are going away in that regard.
Right.
So I completely agree. The big thing for I think that's getting out ahead of them though is this idea of like where it can be used and how it can be used and how fast that's happening. The ChatGPT Pro is $200 a month. Hold on one second. I'm gonna.
But still, even $200 a month is way too cheap.
Yes, for what it does.
It's too.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm not saying it's too cheap. What I'm trying to articulate is it sets a value for its purpose. The price of anything sets the value of the thing, right? So you pay more for things you need more. You pay more for things that have more value to you, and they started low, and they can't go up. And they're kind of screwed because it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of resources.
They set it for everybody else as well.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And I'm not dogging on it. I'm not dogging on it at all. What I'm trying to articulate is what your beginning thing is like the press, most of the press of like normal people that have used 5 are like, yeah, okay. It's basically the same. I see some differences. But then the people that really use it, that like really know what it's doing because their heads have been in it for a year, they're like, holy shit, this thing is amazing. Like it's like X amount more than previous, but that their problem is they need more people to realize it's that much better.
Yes.
And they have a sort of fundamental problem with that, the marketing of it, the psychology of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to think about it in terms because we have such an averse reaction to replacing people with it, right? That is
Yes,
our primary
absolutely.
idea, that we shouldn't, that's what it will do. It will put people out of, it will, you know, people will lose their jobs and the like, and therefore we should avoid it for that very reason.
Yeah, right.
In the same way that like the printing press killed the Scrivener industry. I you ever read?
Yeah,
Did you guys read? We read it at New Trier. Bartleby the Scrivener, the guy.
I've
I would.
never read that.
It's a really pitiful book about a guy who like they always like ask him to do stuff and he always says I would prefer not to. And it's basically about this just like socially unaware kind of, probably a sociopath. People should be happy they're not inviting him over to the house, but that he dies basically alone because he won't allow people into his life and that kind of stuff. And he just eats cheese and writes for a living. But he's a scrivener. He copies books by hand. That's his gig. And I don't see anybody these days clamoring for the people who drove the handwriters out of the book making business so that so that more people could have access to books, right? And there's an
Yeah,
element of
but
that that's still around though
like,
when it comes to AI.
like business consultants, McKinsey, like
Mm-hmm.
financial institutions for
Yes,
like young, early out of school kids who were basically like just shoveling data around. Like this thing replaces them almost instantly. And
right.
so there's a real impact that you can see in the job numbers and in, people coming out of school and the availability of jobs. You can see the impact. And that impact seemingly seems to be like following the script, the doom script of
Mm-hmm.
what AI is going to do, right? At
Yeah.
least at this moment. Um, so, uh,
Well, I'll show
so
you.
I think
It's
that. Go,
yeah.
go ahead. Sorry,
Yeah, it's
did I
okay.
derail you? I'm sorry. I feel like I
No, not at all.
may
No,
have.
because you
Okay.
actually we you kind of moved on to the next point of this, which is Gavin Newsom had this this announcement yesterday that California as a state is partnering with Google and Meta and all the other big tech companies that are in the state to bring AI education, like training the next generation of AI doctors and people with PhDs in
Mhm.
AI and in the tech, um, to the state. So he did like an hour long presentation yesterday with all of these guys. It was it was I don't know, oh my because my window went out again, didn't it? That's because I had to restart. That's what happens because jackass.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Did you have a downtime in the
I
last
did.
hour?
I did. It just kind of
Oh, that's
like
right.
hold on. I try to get this in here. Is this no? That's not it. That's the wrong one. Hold on. I'll get it. I'll find the right one. I wish I could label my. Um, uh, there we go. Hold on. I wish I could label my windows better. 1920, 1920. This is it. Is sort of. Nope. That's the wrong one. Where are you, you silly, silly thing? It's supposed to be this one. Nope. Okay. It's just drunk. Um, I'll try and gather this thing. I don't want that. I want Safari, I think, is what I want.
Ken
Um,
TV said Illinois has outlawed AI from providing mental health counseling. Um, that
yeah, I
must be
don't
like
see
for
that. I
businesses. I've never seen that, but
no, definitely
anyone could
not.
just jump onto a chatbot and use it themselves for counseling.
Yeah, here it is. Okay, finally got it. It cycled through after it lost its mind. I was trying to decide which monitor was which inside the software. I think there's probably an update to OBS that I need to get. That's probably my guess this morning. But he announces this statewide partnership with tech giants to bolster AI education and resources. And it's Google, Adobe, IBM, and Microsoft working with the state to train California's workforce for jobs in AI, and also training workers to work. And this was probably half the thing: work with AI in their jobs, so they're not made obsolete or they're losing work by being replaced by AI, but that they're able to be the worker that knows how to like incorporate into their workflow, increase their productivity and their creativity and all that kind of stuff. Use it as a plus, as a tool, like we always talk about. But this was this is a rather big announcement from him. It's, I would argue, probably a shot across the bow about 2028, about being ahead of things. Because they
Yeah,
probably know they're running against the Peter Thiel crowd, and so you're going to have to
feels to
be
me like it feels to me like there's an opportunity to do like to effectively like have AIs. I mean, the top 5 to 7 companies in the stock market, I guess you could say, in the US are
mhm.
like the majority of our current economy. They're the profits in them are propping up almost the entire place.
Yes. So
And
that
it just
yeah,
seems logical that if the end goal or the end result, excuse me, is to effectively like destroy the employment numbers,
right,
that it should fund the retraining of people to use it uh, via some form of
right,
tax or some sort of payback, like because it's using resources and I mean it's like this huge weight on the economy in a good way, and it's like disguising all the bad that it's doing
right.
effectively.
I have to say, like um, so the a report came out, and I think even yesterday in the GPT-5 thing, Sam Altman mentioned that AI expenditure and expansion in AI, as far as building these data centers and the power that will go with them and all that kind of stuff, is already in its expenditure already before the capital investment that they're all going to do because of the nature of this industry. Has nothing to do with Donald Trump, has a lot to do with the Chips and Science Act, but nothing to do with him. um, is the biggest capital expenditure for infrastructure or industry in American history, except for the railroads. As far as labor to GDP, money to investment to GDP, it is second only to the railroads. It will
That's
overtake the
interesting.
railroads next year.
I was going to say it seems like it would be higher than the railroads, but I guess are they accounting for like the the
Yeah,
value of money on the day versus
Yes,
them?
yes.
Okay.
Compared to like per capita GDP, the kind of economic numbers of the time or whatever. But that's still that's no small feat. That was an enormous undertaking. That took thousands of people and lives to do it. Right. It was unsafe, and but it was integral to the growth of the country. And
Yeah.
yeah,
The movement of people and goods, essentially. Like that's the railroad's biggest contribution to the economy was the movement of people and goods, right? And maybe
right,
resources, like moving resources around because you could go west, get stuff, and bring it. Anyway,
right.
and well, so that's interesting. So then, is there any comparison to the effect the railroads had on the economy versus the effect that AI has on the economy, like overall? Has anybody done
Yes.
anything like that?
Well, right now, directly, it is keeping the economy afloat. The reason the stock market is up, the reason why there is money flowing through places, is because the expansion around these things and the capital investment around them, again, based entirely on the Chips and Science Act and the seed money that was put in place, because that's how long these time scales work. Um, that alone is creating, is holding the economy up on its shoulders. And it has already overtaken an expenditure to GDP, in comparison, as percentage of GDP, it overtook telecom, putting in phone lines. It's already beyond that. As far as the expenditure, the railroads were 6% of GDP. Telecom was 1%. AI is now 1.2% and rising. And currently, because of the nature of that money, when telecom was laid down, when phone lines were laid down, and when the railroad tracks were laid down, we're talking about, you know, a lot of people still living in tents in the country. A lot of people still living in log cabins. They had handmaids. Like at this period of time, it was the Wild West in most of the country. Watch Tombstone, and you'll see what a big deal the fucking train coming was. Right? That's why that town was going to be as big as San Francisco, because they had a train station. Didn't happen, but it's partly why Phoenix became an airport hub later. That's another thing because of shipping and all that kind of stuff. But that it was 6% of the GDP, but the GDP at that time was so much lower that like this you know the what they're spending on AI expansion right now is the equivalent of like 8 times the entire economy during that in practical money and during that time. Like if if you
Yeah.
didn't
So
compensate for dollars, right?
no, I'm not an economist here, so I'm speaking from, I'm an
Mm-hmm.
engineer. But it seems to me that you take the railroads has a net effect on quality of life, on
Mm-hmm.
employment, on mobility, on all those things. And you compare that to AIs, and they seem opposite of each other, in the sense that, like, the creation of AI,
Right.
like OpenAI as a company that comes up with the technology, operates the servers, all that. They can only have so many jobs. It's actually the use of AI that has to have the net effect on the economy, on people's
Right.
lives, on jobs, on your ability to make money and buy things, essentially, right? And so, if the net effect is to make all of that process require less people to do it,
Mm-hmm.
we're running head on into a problem here.
Yep. That's what that's
And
I agree. That's what I've been
and
saying.
the,
Like, no matter what Trump
and
does, we got the dumbest motherfuckers in the world in charge of things right when there's going to be this enormous change that it's going to require a lot of nuance and a lot of understanding of, shifting cultural values and shifting financial stakes and like it's a huge thing. And because they were off by 10 years, the faster this happens, the less prepared Trump world is for it.
yeah, yeah,
And
and
they're
like I like to combine this conversation with quote unquote bringing manufacturing back to the U.S.
mhm.
because none of this tariff stuff is working. It's doing the
No.
exact opposite of what
Right.
he says it's trying to do, right? And so if you're simultaneously like saying over here in the AI world, we need to just get rid of all of the barriers and let these people go and let them make their money. But the money being made is by a very small amount of people who are in the stock market effectively, or private investors for
Right.
any company that's not currently in the stock. Any retail investors can't put their money into certain areas of this just because they're private, right? Um, so then on the other
Mhm.
side,
Right.
there's these effectively barriers for US manufacturers in terms of like just adding this uncertainty and cost. It's almost as if the profit from the thing that's taking away the job should be spent on investing in what the actual physical jobs would be,
Right.
which effectively are manufacturing. So there is kind of a yin and a yang there, but that like it's just not being handled in a way with any coherent plan that seems long
Well,
term and
okay.
logical.
Right. Okay. So one of the things that has happened because of it, you could define inflation as we have experienced it economically as the diversifying of the economy and the spread of the diversifying of that economy. As you start piecemealing stuff out to more and more people, you need more money in circulation to change hands because I'm not just whittling this thing myself and selling it, which would be whatever I decide is worth it for the materials I had or found or grew if it's a tree and my whittling time and giving it to you. So yeah, like let's go back to the old west in this regard. And so
Hmm.
people are, things cost a nickel or, and that was how you defined their worth. But after a while, if you're like, well, this guy makes these other ones that are fancy, and he has this other guy make the legs on it, and so he pays him a thing, and so it's still a nickel, but he needs 5 pennies so he can keep three and give two to this other guy, and then he can make more of them, so he's okay with only getting 3 pennies for this thing that he used to get the whole nickel for. He gives this guy 2 cents, but he can make 10 of them, and so it starts to grow. All right, so there has to be more money in circulation. Inflation has to happen as you diversify, just as things need parts. and then beyond even just like, well, I got some money, I'm going to spend it and eat something. And so the grocery has more, a better customer that buys more food. So they got to stock more food. So they got to get it from elsewhere. And they got to bring it. Okay. That kind of expansion is how it happened. And it grew exponentially over time to the point where, monetary value as it stands is very broad. I mean, dollars are used, in vending machines here in the United States and on pallets passed around by drug dealers and oil cartels in foreign countries because of how it goes. And so that expansion of that is sort of understood for a long time to be never ending. 2% expansion all the time is what you want because you want your economy to grow, and how it's going to grow is by getting more stuff from overseas and then slapping your name on it, or mixing parts, or getting, diversifying your workforce, hiring more people so that you can make more product at a lower cost and provide the product to a lot more people. So that just puffs it up. Once AI starts to drive down that part of it, that guy who was just whittling in that regard with a 3D printer and the ability to just go, I want it to look more like this, and not have to translate it to another person or have them whittle it, and it just runs, and he can just slap it onto what he's doing, and you get this handmade thing with these plastic legs on it because that's how he makes them. That suddenly eliminates the need for that money that used to exist in that space. For a period of time, you need it because you need the 3D printer and you need the plastics and stuff, so you'll buy a little bit of that. But it's different than that guy plus that guy eating plus that guy buying clothes plus that guy buying whatever, the extra person you had working. So why I'm bringing this up is because what you'll see is, what I've been saying all along, is that all technology is deflationary. And as we move into the fastest and most extraordinary advance in technologically in human history, the deflation shock is real. That's lost jobs, heightened productivity with no people doing it, stuff being almost free in a lot of cases, but for the limited jobs that are still there that can't be done by automation or robots and that kind of thing, right? So what we're going to see because of this, and I don't know if it's 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, my guess it'll be fits and starts, is that inflationary bubble, that 2% growth that everybody's been shooting for a very long time, is going to start, I would argue, has already started deflating with automation and some stuff as you get more productive. And there's a very strong chance that because of AI, it bursts in short order. In a few years.
That's kind of what I'm articulating is, what if you took the big seven out of the economy? What are the numbers then?
It's
right?
It's pretty terrible.
And somebody in the chat said, Rob wants to pay more for AI slop job robbing pollution. No, my point about the cost, it's the cost of AI versus the value of it, that it gives you when you use it. Mm-hmm. And what I'm articulating is simply that there's a disconnect between how people value it because of how it's priced, and the amount of investment going into it. It doesn't have money in customers' pockets to pay for the investment. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not there. So how are we going to pay back the investment if it takes away everybody's job and they don't have money and then they can't spend it to pay back the investment?
Okay, so two ways. So there are two ways. One is that in that deflation, things cost a nickel again. That you start getting into a situation where the money in circulation just has to be burned because unless you want to walk around talking in like yen terms, where a TV is 500,000 yen or something like that, which is effectively what the valuation. And the other part is that Altman and these other guys were talking about, as far as the use of AI, because it was trained on everybody's shit, because it started because of, there was both, taxpayer funding of this, and it's meant to be open source at some point, that everybody gets access to it. up to a certain limit use where you can make your own, you can use it for work and to run your distribution, be your accountant, all those kind of things. You can use it for free. But some people will use it in such a way that they'll get extra tokens of usage because they'll find a way to leverage that. And then they will trade those tokens to other people. And this is the Star Wars credit system, that effectively you're using credits. Well, what are you using them for? You're using them for a machine that spits out food already made because it's an AI, system that can scan your body, tell you exactly what you need food-wise, and pop it out and you eat it. Right? These kind of things in the way, way future, or in the faraway galaxy a long time ago. But the point is, it wouldn't be money. It would be like credits to use the AI for whatever you needed to use it for. Whether it was to run if you're going to go on a vacation and you're going to, you're going to rent one of these supercars that you can fit your entire family in. It's also a boat and shit, like super futuristic stuff. That's what they're talking about. Is where they shift away from. It's not dollars. This is not that far from what the technocrats that Vance and his buddies talk about in terms of energy credits. Like you get a certain amount of gasoline credits. And once you've driven them out, you got to wait till next month or you can't get any more unless you earn more doing something else that's added value. But that everybody gets a certain number. And you can have them because we all have the same amount of energy credits. We can earn more or mess around with them or trade them amongst ourselves if we want to. But it's like a UBI of gasoline. That's what the technocrats were thinking back then, because this is the 50s when they're thinking about this. This is right when consumer vehicles are happening. So now they're thinking in terms of usage tokens and integration. Your ability to use the super AI that comes up for whatever you want, medical purposes and all that kind of stuff. You'll have a certain number of credits to be able to do that. And then if you want to earn more because you want bionic parts or some shit and you want it to design those things for you, then you'd have to do something else to add value, whether it's art or performance or something that other people would give some of their credits that they don't use. Because some people use a lot, like you and I, and some people will use none, like the Amish. And then there will be people in the middle who have some left over at the end of the month. And where do they put them, right? And you can trade those around like carbon credits, right? That's what they think is going to happen. I think it's a long fucking way off, and I think they're only thinking about these things because of what I brought up about the bubble. That there's an economic bubble coming where the value of work goes in the fucking toilet, and the harder the labor and the more annoying it is, the quicker it's replaced. And then what?
Yeah. And this is what we're driving to. It seems to me that so we have to, like, the language that is being used around these subjects doesn't work.
Yes.
To describe the problems that we are articulating.
Yes.
So it just doesn't. Like, you can't use job numbers. You can't use GDP. You can't use the value of the dollar anymore. And that's where this disconnect is happening.
Yeah.
And so, and the these companies that are investing in it now, I don't think it's a bubble. I think it's like people showing up with pitchforks and at the front door. Because there's no outlet for this thing. And that's what I'm trying to articulate needs to be constructed. Like a path through it needs to be constructed in vocabulary and the way we talk about it. And one of my thoughts and ideas is to I think things, big problems versus little problems. People can't wrap their heads around big problems in general. And so the way that people are managed in terms of marketing and in terms of speech and political, pushing political ideas, it's simplified. And I think that there's an opportunity to simplify to basically I think you have to put people to work doing the simpler things, the things that can be done closer without the rest of the world, right? So it's hard to articulate this, but so when we talk about tariffs and a car, right? Like, no, very few. You can't just go build a car in your garage,
Yeah.
like from scratch. It's not possible, right? But you could, as you say, whittle a toothpick.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could make a hairbrush. You
Mm-hmm.
could possibly there's things that you could do like in your garage without the world's supply chain. And
Yes.
so the US currently has a certain supply chain, and this tariff talk and all this crazy stuff is upending that. But what I think needs to happen is sort of a back up, like a pullback to what when you talk about US jobs and US manufacturing,
Right.
like things people can physically do, which ties in really well with the things are happening with men and or with boys coming out of school, like having the choice of tech colleges versus going to university.
Right.
Um, like sort of that bifurcation of a
Mm-hmm.
doer versus a thinker, that sort of thing. Like creating the doing jobs is super important right now.
Yeah.
And it's got to be dialed back to the point where the doing is possible inside the environment that is
Mm-hmm.
here.
Right.
If you're going to like destroy the global economy, like destroy the supply chains with tariffs and like cut them off, like you can't just build a new China here. Like it's going to
Right.
take 20
Yes.
years, 15,
Yeah.
20
And
years,
it will be
right?
obsolete by the
So,
time you finish.
so you only have two choices. You can, hope Trump is gone soon and just get rid of the tariffs and go back to the way we were and deal with that fact where everything's coming from everywhere.
Right.
Or you deal with the resources you have here and you
Mm-hmm.
just make your stuff out of what you have and
Mm-hmm.
pay people to do that.
Right.
And so it's your everyday things. It's not your car. Well, your car is an everyday thing, but what I'm trying to get at is
Yeah.
everyday things that are capable of being made inside
Closer to
the
home.
constraints of our
Yeah.
current supply chain.
Right.
And that's sort of what 3D printing is,
Yes.
right? It's basically like in order for a 3D printer to be valuable, you can't try to make what you can buy at Walmart. It's got to look different than the thing at
Yes. It's got
Walmart,
to be special.
right?
It's got to be unique. Is what we
Yeah.
call what the boomers called
Well,
egonomics. Um,
well, it's got to be able to be made on that thing in your house. Like
yes.
you can't make something that's injection molded at Walmart because it's
Right.
not an injection molding machine. It's a 3D
Yeah.
printer. So you have to
That's right.
make that thing, the function of that thing on a 3D printer. That's what I'm talking about in a more macro sense
Right.
in terms of, and I really think that there's this interesting sort of yin and yang between AI going gangbusters and effectively like this concept of bringing jobs back to America. Like, like thinking about that happening at the same time uh,
Mm-hmm.
is quite important right now
Right.
because the job in America, the ability to do it, is the thing that's going to give you the relief valve for what AI is bringing us, I think.
Right. Yeah. Well, and again, it depends on the job as well, because whether it's a
Exactly.
a dead end or a placeholder, or it's a there's going to be a lot more public interaction jobs. You might be safe if you're a barista at Starbucks, but like
Sure.
okay, this is a good example. White Castle is as forward on AI as any restaurant company out there. White Castle they've had for years, they've had a thing they call Flippy, which is a robot fry flipper that brings up the stuff out of the oil, instead of having to shake it or whatever, it flips the cage so that the oil drips out of it, and then it goes back down into it and does it what the people had to do before. It does it automatically. And now there's AI sensors on all of it, so that it's just behind a wall and nobody's going to get grease thrown on them by an aberrant robot flicking hot oil everywhere. It has an AI at the drive-through, which is like
Mhm.
is 90% better than the people that they have working there as far as getting your order right. And now they're going to do robotic delivery. They're piloting just like Domino's is. They're piloting either drone or like robotic delivery trucks. Like Amazon around here, there are a few of their trucks that have no drivers, and they're all around the Amazon facility. You can tell that they're like slowly making their way out one more road at a time, and they buy the Waymo mapping information, and they have sensors all over the truck, so the trucks just are going to be showing up, and then this little thing is going to go and put it on your on your stoop or whatever. And then if it's too big or it requires a person, they'll have people come out until they figure out a way to have robots come out and carry the whole goddamn thing, right?
And so now, like, you have to make the White Castle burger like not bad for you, like actual
right. There
sustainable
you go.
nutrition,
So yes,
like in
right.
the
So
Matrix style, like the goop that they're eating, like the perfect goop, right? Like, but
yeah,
it's got to
well,
be in the form of a White Castle burger so that you can
right.
actually like,
Or the steak that
give nutrition to the people
yeah,
around
that
your
Joe
White
Pantoliano
Castle.
is the steak he's eating is like, I know this is fake. It's just signals going to my brain, but it's delicious. I
Oh,
don't care.
I'm talking about in
Yeah, the
the, I don't know,
oatmeal.
in,
Yeah.
yeah, the oatmeal, where they're in the
Well,
ship and they're
here's
eating.
okay. So the cost like this has been, and I don't want to like it always boils down, and this is where the kind of capitalism conversation gets fucking off the rails or whatever. But I would argue this is about labor and effort. That whether I'm going to put my
Yeah,
effort into something, it's got to be worth it to me. It can't just be a 1-to-1. And the example I would use is if your arm required as many calories to spoon food into your face as you got from the food you were eating, you would die. There has to be profit from the labor of your arm. The calories that are being delivered into your system have to be higher than the calories needed by the arm itself. That's fairly simple and easy for people to understand, right? So the labor
mhm.
versus return on energy investment has to be, has to be lower. You have to labor has always got to be cheaper than whatever you're doing, or you won't bother to labor doing it. If the calories, if nobody climbs a tree to pick rotten fruit unless they want to get drunk, I suppose. And they need to old National Geographic things about
There
monkeys,
you go.
but you know what I mean. Like the for real, like if you. This isn't even about, because this is that Richard Wolff bullshit about if your employer gets it big, worth more than he doesn't have any need for you. And you're like, well, asshole, that's true about your fucking legs. Like, what are you talking about, right? Of course, there's got to be a return on it, and it's also got to be true for the employee, unless it's that's why slavery is bad. The employee can go, okay, I have this much time in my day. Will I trade that time in my day for the money this guy is offering or not? Is it worth it or not? Is it, do I need it to pay the bills? Are the stuff that I'm getting from the stuff I'm paying bills for worth the labor working for this asshole, right? I don't mean to point in your direction, I'm pointing down. You know what I mean? Like, we all make those trade-offs, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But Richard Wolff's a millionaire communist. It's hilarious. But the point is, until things are free, somebody is putting the effort in. And if it ain't you, it's somebody else. And if you're asking them to do that, the compensation for that can't be 1-to-1. Hey, you get that apple out of that tree for me. I want an apple. And the person's like, well, I could die climbing the tree. Why don't you get it your fucking self? And they're like, well,
Right.
what do I have? Right? That's where it starts. Like that's where that trade. What are
Yeah.
you willing to trade for that or whatever? In the case of AI and automation replacing things, the value of the labor goes down so much that even people on the in the bubble, the availability of those things, that goop you're talking about, becomes so ubiquitous that nobody goes without, because you're not asking anybody to do you a favor. Robots and fucking AI are going to do a ton of that. Somebody's asked about men and
So,
boys. I completely agree, and
oh,
we'll get to that. But go ahead.
previous to my other thing, which relates to this, Jose Kelly said basically moonshine stills and soap making in Appalachia. And yeah, that's kind of what we're talking
Yes.
about. And what I'm articulating is that there's certain things that are so big and hard. Like nobody can make an iPhone in Appalachia, but
Right.
somebody can make soap in Appalachia, and
Yep.
we need soap.
Yes.
So we need toothpaste, we need
Right.
hair gel. Like
That's
you can
right.
make all those things in Appalachia,
That's right.
right?
And you can
So
make them more
what
natural
I
because
think
they don't
is,
have to survive in a shipping container, for, 3 weeks,
yeah.
whatever.
So I think maybe the conversation needs to start revolving around that. Like, what is possible to be done here so that we can articulate, like, okay, AI and automation are going to do this for us. And then what are we going to do after it took our jobs? Well, we're going to do these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's Andrea put something in the Discord that I think
Mm-hmm.
probably might send us in a good direction. This is from Triva. I have a
Triva. Yeah.
question. It feels like you are assuming we don't have the dictator-like government we have now. What would be the ideal breakthrough point for AI? What is to happen for all the current pop? I'm not sure what the pop means, but um,
Population.
so population, there you go. So yes, we are. So the government is only what it is now, and it's going to
Mm-hmm.
change in 26, and then it's going to change again in 28, and it's going to continue to change. And
Yeah.
the speed of that change is accelerating. We've seen it accelerate, and it's going to accelerate more. And so that's the thing that I think is important. Like all of the stories about all the norms that Trump is breaking,
Yeah.
the next Democratic president can just do that without, they're not actually breaking norms. So, for instance, if a whole bunch of people were stuck into DOJ that you don't like, then elect someone to fire them on day one and
Yes.
replace them with your own, right?
Right.
It's like Democrats Project 2028, right?
Yeah.
So yes, we are. I think we are assuming that the government is kind of, I think, irrelevant, and in this thing, and it's proven by Taco effectively,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like Congress is too slow. They just
They
can't keep
can't
up,
respond fast
and
enough.
they're
They
not
couldn't. They
going to.
couldn't
They
legislate
can't.
it if they wanted to. Same thing happened in California when they were trying to push those bills. I talked about the
Right.
one that I was brought on board for. I'm like, this thing's obsolete by the time we're done with this phone call.
Right. So if our normal way of making laws can't keep up, the next level you have, and this is kind of like maybe part of the executive branch's ability to do things on the fly. Trump is kind of doing that. And, I'm no fan of the things happening. I'm just articulating the physics of what's happening, right? Like that quick change, like the norms that are being broke are effectively allowing change to happen faster.
Mm-hmm.
So as these things become more relevant and as our conversations about them start to have more meaningful outcomes, like more meaningful goals, let's call them, and not outcomes, but goals, like here's how we think we can construct this problem and
Mm-hmm.
head towards a solution. Um, then that will, that in theory will change our elective government. And whether the government has a say in it or not is somewhat irrelevant. Like it has more to do with which stocks you buy and which products you buy, right? You
Right.
could make Apple go away tomorrow if everybody stopped buying Apple phones. And that's not going
Right.
to happen necessarily, but it's true. It could, like, you could stop that. So at any rate, then so what would the AI breakthrough be? What is the breakthrough point for AI? I I actually think it might already happen, and we're dealing
Right.
with the fallout from the breakout point, and that's what I was kind of talking about at the beginning when we talked about the fact that it's hard to it's hard to pinpoint for normal people what the accelerating value is from
Mm-hmm.
AI because to a normal person it just looks like the same response. There's no like there's
Right.
no there's no reference to speed. Like if you're in
Right.
a car and the land
Yes.
is moving at 100 miles an hour, the same as the car, it looks like you're standing still. That's kind of what AI's problem is right now.
Right.
And so what I'm getting
Well,
at is that
to the public, and I would
to the
argue that
public,
it. Yeah.
exactly. But what I'm trying to say is like these, I know they seem big, but they still need the public to exist. that's democracy. That's U.S. democracy. They
Yeah.
still need the public to exist. So that somehow, some way, they will run out of steam if they don't bring the people with them.
Yes.
And that's the problem we see coming. Is
Oh
that
yeah. There's two. Well, there's two fractured zones of it. One is the public face of AI, and the other is the private, industrial, governmental, philosophical aspect of AI. So Anthropic and OpenAI have offered the U.S. government the use of AI for $1. That's the I don't know if you saw that, but both of them have offered them systems that they can use and have full access to for all these things for $1. Now, I think that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, and there's a chance that you got to be very careful about what kind of upload situation we're dealing with. And the idea is that Grok got it for free, so maybe they're like, we'll pay you $1. But there is a real shift coming. Whether people use ChatGPT in their regular lives as employees or not. Because this is the part that I'm trying to get through to people, especially, and I focus on robotics because it's something people can get a grip on and see. And I showed you that video. I sent it, my girlfriend Summer was working out at her gym that she goes to, and there was a SWAT team showed up, and they had one of these Boston Dynamics dogs with its boa constrictor arm attachment, open the door, hold the door with its foot, and walk in, basically looking to see if the gunman was still in there or had done themselves in or whatever was going on. It was an active situation. We don't know. The details are coming out slowly, but they arrested the owner of the business, and then there was something else going on. But that was they had two robots there. The dog went in. The funny part to me was, and I'll see if I can, I'll bring it up because I think it.
While you're pulling it up,
yeah.
Narachi says we should be entitled to a dividend from all AI companies since we trained all the models. That's not a terrible idea. It's actually a possible way to essentially even out the cost versus value. Like to say ChatGPT or OpenAI is going to allow, let's say, I think you said the UK or to use it for $1. We're in a spot where we the resources used for it, we paid for that. So I'm articulating the fact that there's no exchange of money for anything that's happened yet. There's not enough exchange for it to have the value that it's cost yet. And it doesn't seem to have a path to that.
No, not at all.
The problem is bigger than me making a widget and you buying one, and me making money and you using the money you made as an actor, right? It's way bigger than that.
Right.
And so that's what we have to deal with. Did you have that video?
I do. Sweet. I want to show you something. So, because I think in many ways, this sums up kind of what I'm talking about in terms of where we are versus where. Here, I'll turn off the audio because these people. So this is the Boston Dynamics robot dog, and watch the arm on the top of it. I showed this on the show. It looks like stop animation, but it's not. This is real. And is this? It goes for the door first. So it either misses or is told to do something else, like lowers its grip or whatever, and it's doing it autonomously. This is not a situation where it's got some guy's using a remote. This one's AI. There's a guy watching what it sees, and they're all watching on a screen, but it's running itself. That's the nature of these. See, it holds the door with its own foot and goes through. That's how you know it's not remote controlled. It opens up the door, and then it goes through. Now, here's the important thing. That's fucking crazy. Oh my God. That's the cops sending in a robot. Now, watch what shows up in the background over here, right there, after it goes inside. And you'll recognize it. This is the old traditional bomb disposal robot that we've seen before, that is remote controlled by a human being, that has sensors on top of it. But this, we're watching WALL-E right before our fucking eyes. Right? This is...
Yeah, and the thing that
it rolls up. See if it sorry, it goes. Yeah, here it is. It rolls up at one point, and you see it come up beside because it's coming towards the door. So they're rolling it by this place, and then it comes at the door. I think the video ends when it's sort of like getting there. But this is a person doing like this, and look at the difference between that thing and the robot that just went in the house or went into the store by itself, right? On its own, autonomously. That's the difference. That's the arc. Because everybody thought it was going to take till 2036 to go from that robot there sitting next to the pink truck and the one that went inside the door on its own. And it happened last year. That's like, this is tried and true technology at this point.
Yeah. I thought that in real time, watching it the first time, the dog we've seen, it's doing stuff that we've seen a lot, but the movements on that arm are particularly interesting to me.
Yes.
Because they're in the linking moves in between its function were like crazy fast.
Yes.
And the way that it was like manipulating around, I've been reading that in robotics, that there's been a bit of a shift to, instead of trying to like program a task, like all the steps of movement from A to B, that there's a movement to just say, here's A and go to B, and to let micro adjustments happen in between based on environment. And the interesting thing that's happening is that the movements of the robot doing it that way look more human, as if that's probably more like the way our bodies function.
Right.
Like our nervous
system we make small compensations all the time. Right.
Yeah, we have sort of level 1, level 2 thinking, level 3. So our small adjustments are happening automatically without us thinking, and we're thinking, oh, I just want to go to the other side of the room, right?
Right.
Anyway, you can see that kind of happening inside of that robot.
Yes, you can.
And the other thing I'd love to say is, remember many months ago we talked about this, and I was saying like the first robots you're going to see in public out doing functions are the dogs.
Yes.
They're clearly more functional. They're and in that case, you want that thing to be intimidating, right?
Right.
You want people to be scared of it because then they won't come and try to, maybe they'll actually like stand down if it's a problem that they're trying to, bring somebody in or something.
Yeah, it's to me like the leap was what stood out to me. Like the difference between what we see as bomb disposal robots or those kind of things. For years we've seen people use a remote controlled device, even if it was just like somebody at some point just went, well, can we put a remote control car with like a camera on top of it and I'll just drive it in there and then we can see it on this screen, because my kid has a toy that kind of does this, right? And that was the beginning of it. Now, but the difference is the autonomy of it, that it can go in on its own. And it just opens the door by itself and goes inside. And like, for fuck's sake, like, most AIs can spoof an RFID tag. They could figure out a way to spoof an RFID tag. That's it. That's any place with digital doors, bleep, where you use a card to get in. Those guys, they can already fucking do it. Everybody's like, it looks like an insect. I agree. I call them cats because they look a little bit more like cats to me, actually. But maybe that's just me favoring them. But
I mean, they're like functionally, they're function driven. Like that's function or form following function as opposed to function following form. Like you want it to do something, and it just makes the most sense to do it that way.
That's
4 legs on the ground is easier to deal with than 2 legs. You don't have to balance as much, and you don't have to put as much resources into balance and things like that, right? So
that's right.
That's kind of like that form factor is, we're going to see more and more of that as we see, like you said, the old remote control, and just the difference in the speed and accuracy of their movements is just, it's night and day. Like,
right. So somebody's like, maybe insects or AI. Yeah, like there are no birds.
Yeah.
How Palantir claims to be a sci-fi fan. Well, Palantir's a company. I think you mean Peter Thiel. They all are. I mean, they all live in that world. We're at the end of the show, and it's sort of it's zipped by. But I want to point out that the Bureau of Labor Statistics in their job stuff, the jobs numbers that Trump is freaking out about, also included in their details that 10,000 jobs were lost to AI in the last quarter, specifically. And it was the first time they've noticed a statistically significant downturn in jobs caused by AI particularly. And and you and I have been talking about this for a long time. It's if you hate your job, if you don't like your job, if you don't like doing it, and if you know in any job you see people doing a job they hate doing, that's what AI is going to take first. That honestly, if you love your job, it's going to be harder for it to take because there's too much nuance in it. It's too exciting and it's got too much depth. That's why it engages people. But if it's an unengaging, boring, repetitive, painful process, it's gone as fast as possible. And there's a real ethical, moral, and philosophical thing we have to confront about, why would you root against it? Do you ban the forklift
also
because you want 4 guys with back problems when they're old? And again, that's where you save on, Social Security, disability, and all that kind of stuff because people aren't injured. Like that's part of the conversation.
And the future of it, I mean, you can't stop it. It's happening. So the future of it is how do you use it to create new value? How do you use it to create new jobs? And so that's where we have to be creative. We have to think about that. And so instead of like cowering back and say it's destroying us, like get your brain flowing and try to think, how can I use this to make more jobs?
Right.
And that's what we're doing here. That's what I do every day. I try to figure out how to.
Yes, that's what root design is literally doing. Right. And I appreciated that because that practicalness of that conversation helps. So here's what I would say. Next time you and I talk, I think we should have a goal. And one of them is to come up with some new language on how to describe this stuff that isn't retreading old, like, either, a new analogy or a new term that we can kind of launch that helps people know that the old ways of describing this stuff are inadequate to the task, right? And then the other one too is those use cases to like how to use it to make more opportunities, not fewer, right? And free yourself from drudgery.
Like, for instance,
go ahead.
I'm working on a project from a company here close to this shop that's been around for years. It's a manufacturing company, and they need some modernization. And if I didn't have AI in my background, I would not have gotten that job, as a consultant. And so understanding it, because the people that work there, they know it exists, and I don't hide that we use it because they would try to use it too. As a consultant, everybody's trying to take your job. They're trying to not pay you, right?
Right.
They're like, we don't need this guy that's charging us extra money, and we can just go do it, right? So understanding AI well enough to understand that without using it in the right way, it's not actually going to be helpful. And then also being able to explain the value of the actual job you're doing, irrespective of, whether AI is being used or not. And then how does AI make that job faster, cheaper, or more valuable?
Safer, right?
That's how you have to use it, like you would any other tool. So anyway, I love that idea. And then also, I would love to get a little off sometime when we're not on time. I want to test whether or not I can use my phone, be on my phone on this, and walk around the shop. But I need to do it with you offline because it might be too loud. I need to figure out the sound, all that stuff. So if we can do that,
it should do voice ISO pretty well, even in those circumstances. It's pretty damn good. So we'll give it a shot.
I want to test it not live because
I think that's wise. Yes, right. I understand, and I already had one disaster this morning already, tech wise. So appreciate it, brother. I will talk to you later. Thank you so much, Rob Glenn, Root Design, and my nerd brother from another mother, helping us all walk into this valley of the unknown around these things, because there's a lot of things we can do in response to these things to make our organic lives more valuable by using these tools as they show up, the same way humanity learned to use the hammer and the pen. And so it's crucial. So much love, you guys, and we'll see you later. Yes?
Yeah, bye everybody in chat. Great to see everybody. Have a good
Okay.
weekend, Hal.
See you later, Rob. Okay, there he goes. Ladies and gentlemen, and thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. I know this is a deep and gnarly conversation. I think most of the AI conversations you're seeing online, I feel like, are toilet paper. They're good temporary, like what's the hottest thing or whatever. But to deal with the philosophical ramifications and talk about like where we're going and how to adapt to it as it comes, I think has tremendous value. So I appreciate you guys joining me in that today. And I want to thank Dana Goldberg again for her patience in the tech situation and in and allowing for the depth of conversation that she and I were able to have. And I will see you guys later on this afternoon. All righty. Hold on. I've got to play the Rob Glenn theme song on the way out. I feel like we have to. There we go. All right. I'll see you guys later on this afternoon. All right. Where's that button? It's something like this.
Robots in the kitchen, see them eyeing me. Toasters on a mission, what's their strategy? Microwave is glaring, fridge begins to hum. Out for domination, oh man, here they